Sup nerds, Seth here to help you level up your fandom. This is a split devlog. We split it from yesterday's episode, so if you haven't seen that, go check the card up there and watch that first, because this will continue right where that one left off. We're going to hop into Fusion 360 and then back into Unity and then toss that game on a headset and get it tested. I don't want to delay this anymore, so let's just jump right in. Okay, let's hop back into Fusion 360. I'm gonna hide that. So now let's get started on the actual floor plan. Start another sketch. I'm gonna start with a line right here in center. The reason I want to do this is I want the center part of the bottom of the star, the crotch area of this star shape, to be the actual anchor point for this whole design. So I'm going to start with that wall length, and that is going to determine the scale and size and area of the rest of the floor. It's 1 unit, and I think I'm going to make 1 square unit 1 meter. Why not? So that way we have tiles effectively of 1 by 1 meter. No, that's too small. The 3 meters is fucking huge. Okay, I'm going to make that base unit equal to 3 meters. And the reason I want to do that is, 1, 3 meters is plenty. 2, I want to have the base unit the same as the wall height, which will make the tiles way easy. And I want my walls to be probably 3 meters. Because 3 meters is pretty high. It's like 10 feet. The reason I want them to be that high is because we're going to have vents and ducting and all kinds of stuff kind of hanging low below the ceiling. So it's going to eat into that space, and I feel like that'll give us enough room so that we don't feel claustrophobic in VR. But another advantage of having that base unit be the same height as the wall means I can have effectively 3 by 3 tiles, 3 meters by 3 meter tiles, that I can use to make up textures and all kinds of stuff like that. Having 1 single tile size will make the rest of the game flow much easier. So I'm just going to start with a line. We are going to have that make sure it's at 90 degrees. 3 meters is 300 centimeters, which would be 3,000 millimeters. And yes, I am still just operating in thousands of millimeters, because I don't want to change my Fusion 360 setup, because I do most of my 3D printing in millimeters, and I'm lazy. So we've got 3,000 millimeters, which is 3 meters. So this is now our base measurement. I am going to fast forward this because it's probably going to take me a while. Construct the layout, basically the exact same thing as my sketch, same view, that top-down just view of lines, as a sketch in Fusion. And then from there, we will turn that into a plane and make some walls and stuff like that. See you on the other side. Okay, I want to pop in real fast and kind of show you guys my methodology here. So there's lots of angles here, and instead of trying to figure out the actual angle, because I have this whole floor plan laid out on a grid system, what I can do is just take a vertical line and a horizontal line, like the initial measurement and the left side leg vertical line, and figure out on my notes how many squares over that is in my notebook, and then that will tell me how many units away from that other point it is. So in this case, for example, I need to make this left side arm here. So what I'm going to do is look at my notes, and the vertical line for this bottom leg here is 4 away from the vertical line at the end of the leg. So we just take 3 times 4, which is 12, right? So that means 12,000 millimeters. So what I do, that will just take a line and obviously snap it and make it 12,000 millimeters long. So then if I look at the endpoint and I go up, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another 4. So all I have to do is draw a line that is 12,000 long. And I know that the end point of this line is where that angle will end. And then I just have to connect these two lines together. Hooray! And then we are just going to cut both of those effectively construction lines. I'm not going to bother making them construction lines because they don't need to be. And then I have my angle. So then I can draw the vertical wall here, which I know is 1 unit, which is 3,000. Make sure it's at exactly 0 there. And there we go. And now I have the angle of that line exactly how I need it. And I don't have to worry about figuring out what angle it actually is. I can just place it on the grid of my notebook, and there you go. That's why we had the standard size units, so that we can make sure that our lines are exactly what they are. And then all I have to do, I don't have to worry about the angle. I can just draw perpendicular lines in the right lengths and spaces, and then we're good to go. Okay, and there we have it. Easy peasy. I mean, it's not super accurate or super great, but that's okay. Yeah, so what we're gonna do is finish the sketch, and then we've got our nice little thing here. First things first is I actually just want to extrude up some walls. Like, I'm just gonna make the walls here because I can make them really easily and really quickly, and they don't need to be special. This is just for proportions. So how you do that is we're gonna hit E to bring up the extrusion menu here. And on the right side, you can see we have an option that says thin extrude. And basically what that means is we can extrude like an edge instead of a face. So just gonna click on this entire edge loop here. I'm gonna go to the side, and we are gonna extrude that up 1 unit, which is 3,000 millimeters, which is our 3-meter unit, right? There you go. Then we have our walls. I want to actually turn the sketch back on because we need to extrude out the floor. And it's important that we extrude the floor downward into negative space. We don't want to extrude it up because that will just eat into our wall height, and we don't want that. So what I want to do is hit, like, I don't know, -5 millimeters. It's effectively a plane. It doesn't need to be big. But there is one important thing I need to do, and that is on this operation, I don't want it to join. I want it to actually make a new body so that the walls and the floor are separate. That way I can import them separately and turn them on and off in Unity or whatever more easily. But I want them to be separate. The other advantage that extruding them as 2 separate bodies gives us is we can very easily make it a roof as well. We just have to duplicate the floor to make it a roof. So all I'm going to do is highlight the floor and hit M, which will give us this kind of movement dongle here. But it's important, in the move menu, we click the create copy, which will create a duplicate. And then we just got to move that up 3 meters, which it'll kind of snap to because Fusion is pretty convenient. There you go. It's a new body, and then we can rename it up here to ceiling. That's not how you spell ceiling. I before E, man. Okay, so now we have basically an enclosed box. Hide the sketch. We just have an enclosed box, but this is our floor. This is our layout. One thing I do want to do now that we've got this fully extruded is, if you look at our notes here, there's a second room on this left wing. So in order to do that, I'm gonna add it now, because if I added this line in initially, the edge loop for the walls would include that, and it would be separate, and I didn't want that. So what we're gonna do now is actually edit the sketch, so we can double click to go into it. Forgot I rotated that. All we gotta do is add that line in line with this other one because the doorway is dead center. Easy. And then we're gonna go up 3, add another click, and complete this line. So now we've got 3 lines there, and we can just hit the cut and remove that center one. And now we have this kind of orphaned line here. And what we're gonna do is same thing as before. We're gonna click on that edge and hit E to and then click on thin extrude, and we're just going to click and then control click. So we've got both of those selected. I'm going to unhide the walls from this body. There you go. That way, when I extrude this line, it will automatically want to join them with the walls, which is what I want because they're walls. So extrude this up 3000, and obviously because it's touching, it's going to want to cut, but we don't want to cut, so we're going to choose join, and then that will automatically join them with this wall loop here without messing it all up. So now our interior walls are like this. So now I can see if that 3 meter wide doorway is what I want, which is huge. Looking at my notes, I made it 1 unit wide. I can tell already that's going to be freaking huge. That's not a good doorway size, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect. This is scale, but we can see it in VR. So we've got our floor, wall, and ceilings. We're going to have to do the exact same process that we did for the human scale, and that is 1, save this, 2, export it as an FBX, import it into Unity, and that's what we're going to do right now. Okay, so here we are in Unity. I've got the assets imported. All I did is drag them in. Okay, so back in Unity, I've just dragged them in. Easy peasy. What we're going to do first is drag them into our scene. So let's start with the walls here. We've got nice angle. So I have to focus on that. So we want to rotate them this way. Hold control so we get that nice effect of 90. And then let's just do 0, 0, and 0. Perfect. Okay. Now, let's bring in our ceiling. We'll do the same thing. We'll reset this transform to 0, 0, and 0. And then we'll do the same -90. And then bring in the floor. Reset the transform to 0, 0, 0, and negative. Okay, so now, because the floor and ceiling are at 0, we need to move the ceiling down 3 meters. So we'll just do -3. Perfect. Actually, because I want it to be, I don't want any light bleed, we'll do 2.99, which will be better. Let's just hide this plane. I'm not going to get rid of it. Now, what we need to do is clean up our scene. So we need to get rid of the default XR rig. So we'll just delete that. We need to take our XR player and we'll just kind of move him over here. I don't know why the rig there is separate for the pivot point. Don't know. We're also going to move him up just a little bit so that it falls onto the plane and I don't have to worry about it like clipping. Move our human scale measure kind of over by the doorway there. Just because, I mean, that's kind of what we want to be testing, right? Sweet. Next, we need to add colliders to all of these things. So because they're FBXs, they kind of import as prefabs, basically. They're like modified prefabs. So what we need to do is go into the drop down, and I actually don't know why this is labeled ceiling, but yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter. To this component, we need to add a mesh collider, and we'll basically do that for the walls as well. We don't need to do that for the ceiling because we're not going to be hitting the ceiling, so I'm not going to worry about that. But we need to turn the ceiling back on, and then let's just hit play and we'll see if we drop through the floor and all of that stuff. Nope. Great. So here's what we're going to do next. I'm just going to export this to an APK instead of testing through Unity because I have a really terrible graphics card. Thanks, scalpers. So oddly enough, the APK directly on my Quest headset performs much, much better than trying to play it through my extremely limited PC. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so I'm going to hide my dumb face, and then because we're going to need to be able to see a lot of the build settings stuff, so we can kind of set up our rig to be exported. So first things first, let's open up our project settings. Open up our project settings. We need to go to XR plugin management. The reason I like doing the VR template from Unity is because this stuff is already kind of set up. I don't have to go in and worry about like importing all of these other things. What I do want to do is make sure we have the Oculus plugin for Android installed. So if we check that box, it will install that thing, which is what we want. And then we need to just make sure that our Android thing is kind of set up properly. So I'm going to do multi-view just for performance. Same thing with phase sync. Clicking that checkbox will improve performance a bit. Make sure it's single pass instance. Yeah, cool. This is all good. We do need to make sure that we've got our touch input. I'm doing this on the PC side of the OpenXR because when I inevitably test through Unity later for my own self, that's what I'm going to be using. And I'm going to add the Oculus touch input for OpenXR as well, because Oculus will eventually be moving to OpenXR, and I don't know when that's going to be. So instead of having to worry about it, that's what I'm just going to do. So we've got this good. Single pass instance. Make sure it's all single pass instanced as much as possible, and we should be good there. Another thing I want to do is go to player, and we'll just change some stuff because it's cool, and I'm getting more excited to see this kind of stuff. What I want to do is add the splash image. So I'm actually just going to import like a PNG logo here of our podcast, and then set that as the texture for the splash screen because I think that's gonna be so sick. That's probably good. It'll be so exciting to see like our own little logo in this game. That's extremely exciting. Next, we need to set up our build settings. So we will go to File, Build Settings. We need to switch over to Android. So click on it and click Switch Platform. If you don't have Android set up already, you need to do that through Unity Hub to import the proper modules for each particular Unity install. So next, for Oculus, we need to set our texture compression to ASTC, which is gonna recompile these textures and stuff. Now that the compression is all reset, we should be good to go. And I'm just gonna build this directly. Let's do it here. SCVR. I don't even remember what I called this. Spatial test v0.1.apk. Hit save. It's gonna build this thing out. Next thing we need to do is set up our headset. I've got a USB cable that's plugged into my computer. We're gonna plug that in and then get to testing. Okay, so while this is finishing up, I'm just going to plug in my headset, open up SideQuest, and we can see the little green check mark, which means we are good to go to install this thing once it is finished. We did it! Okay. So let's open up SideQuest. We just drag in our APK in SideQuest and it will install it here. Perfect. We're done. Okay, let's hop over and we'll do that. Okay, so first things first. Now that it's installed, we're just gonna disconnect that. Gotta remove my beanie because this headset won't fit without it. And then we hopping in. So obviously I'm in the space station version for inspiration. We need to go to make sure we're in unknown sources, and we can see, hey, SCVR spatial test, let's go. And there's that logo. Oh, it's so exciting, I can't wait. Okay, here's our room. Now you can see hands look like they're working. We've got our little FPS counter, which is at 71, which is good. You can see lots of like shadow bleed, but that's okay. That's a shader problem. Interesting. So I don't have the teleportation set up like normal, but actually I think it's by default, I think it's click. It is. Hey. Okay, you can see this is fucking huge, actually. Our human scale is... Actually, why does it look wrong? Ah, yeah. So human scale is actually probably good, but the floor is at the wrong height, which is interesting. This doorway is actually like not as big as I thought it was gonna be. I mean, it is pretty large. The thing that I am realizing here is this is just way too big. Yeah. Yeah. This is way too large. Look at this thing is like, I mean, I guess I could have realized if this is 23 blocks in my notebook wide from this wall through that doorway to that wall. It's 23. So what's 23 times 3 meters is like what? 66 meters? That's enormous. This is entirely too large. So what we'll have to do is figure out a new scale. Probably, which kind of stinks because that means the scale will change, obviously. This is our... Weird. Why is tracking off? This is our first wall. 3 by 3 meters is our baseline. And that's okay. That's a good size, but I think what I need to do is actually make the scale 1 meter. I think I need to make the default box 1 meter, 3 feet, which would mean that this wall section is going to be a third this size, you know, maybe about the same as this gray here. But and that will also mean that the walls, instead of being 1 unit tall by 1 unit wide, 3 by 3 meters, they'll be 3 units tall by 3 units wide, which will still tile just fine, but it'll take the overall scale of this whole thing down considerably, which I think is important, because, I mean, it's big. Well, I mean, maybe it's not too big. It's kind of hard to tell if it's going to be too big, actually. This is like a room. Yeah, I lost tracking. I don't know why. Sometimes Oculus is like that. I mean, as a room, this is not actually that big. So, man, I am having like legit unsure vibes here. It's definitely larger than I had wanted it to be. Like, in my head, it's a much smaller, cozy sort of place. Yeah, in my head, it's a cozier place. But I guess it's really not like that big. I'm really unsure. I'm gonna have to think about this. I mean, yeah, I think it's too big. This room over here is like the right size for a utility room, right? If I make it much smaller, it will be much smaller. I think the only thing for me to do is to try it. So let's make it smaller and let's try it. So how are we gonna make it smaller? You might be asking. First thing what I want to do is actually turn off this directional light because it's too much. I don't like the light bleed. It's really messing with my brain. So we're just gonna add in some area lights, just, you know, whenever. Just gonna make the range a little large and just kind of move them throughout, which should be fine. Probably need to move them up though, because they seem like they're clipping through the floor. Just keep copy pasting them. Select them all, and we will go to a right angle view. Yeah, see, they're underneath the floor, so we'll just do that. That should be fine. Let's just crank the range way up to like 50. I don't know, that's also probably fine. It's just to help light the scene. It does not need to be special. Then what we are going to do is basically we're just gonna take all 3 of these, lock the scales, and reduce them by 1/3. So we'll go to like 0.3. Perfect. So that would be the equivalent of the 1 meter. There is one change we need to make, however, and that we need to select the walls, unlock them, and on the y-axis, go back to, nope, and on the z-axis, go back to 1, so that they're the same height, just everything else is much smaller. And then we just need to kind of line everything back up so that it all kind of matches. And I'm realizing right now that we should have done the lights second. That's fine. We're just going to move this to like -0.9, I guess, is close enough. And then we need to re-enable our ceiling and move that into its proper spot, or at least close enough. Now we need to replace those lights, and we will just start grabbing lights from the hierarchy and moving them into different places. Ooh, we also need to move our human scale, which actually let's check on the thing real fast. Let's make sure that we've got the right human scale for the walls and stuff. So I'm going to focus on the human scale measurer, and you can see much smaller, but the wall height is right. And you can see this actually is basically the width of a person. So this is a very narrow door, but that's okay. This is rough and dirty testing here. We're in pure testing mode. So let's zoom back out, and we will continue to move lights. Then we need to move our VR player back into this corner, and we need to make sure he is above the floor, which it looks like he is. Yeah, that seems good. Which means that when we play, he won't drop through the floor. And we can just test real fast. We just hit play, just to make sure that the player doesn't drop through the floor. Great. Perfect. Now, let's rebuild this thing out. Actually, what we're going to do is rename this whole like setting in our project settings, and then replace that build. So go to edit, project settings. We are going to rename this to VR test tiny, like that. And also I'm going to increment this as well, just to be sure. Hit save, and then we're just gonna replace this build. Plug our headset back in so that SideQuest can pick it back up. There we go. And we can see here we've got spatial test there. Great, so that's installed. And then we just need to draw up version 2 in here, and that will install that. Let's kind of click through. Let's make sure that we've got both. Yes, okay, spatial test and spatial test tiny. So we're good to go. We can unplug that again, and we can switch back over to the testing. So let's do that. Okay, so we're in our unknown sources again, and you can see we've got tiny and the regular in both of these. Hooray! So let's open up tiny. I freaking love that logo. I'm so happy to see that as a splash screen. It makes me so excited. Okay, so here's our new space. We loaded in basically where the elevator would be. We can see we're still running at 70 FPS. And this is a much smaller space. You can tell already, like, this is much smaller. But I think this is definitely closer to like what I had in mind. And we've got basically like a closet in here. Big tall walls. You can see if I do the teleportation and then touch, my hand touches, yeah, of course. The floor is again not at the right spot, so that's something we'll have to be sure is correct. So the height isn't quite right here. I should, with my actual height on this block here, it should be about there, based on how far the floor was when I touched it. So, you know, height's not quite a good representation here, but the space is much smaller. You can see like we'd have like a control system over there in this area. We'd have our like little mess hall kitchen. This would be the spawn teleporter where everybody spawns in, and then elevator would be right over here. And I think that this is actually the scale that I want this to be in. It would mean that like if we're gonna have like our change appearance console here, right? We've got, I don't know, our little 1 meter area here, so like a little console to like adjust your appearance. I think that might be fine. Obviously we'll have to change the door width, because it's just too small, but not by much. We don't have to change it by much. And you know, as like a little closet recording thing, if this is, you know, whatever we labeled it as, that's not a bad space. And that means that like if we have the actual wall extend like that to kind of close this off, this will be each one of these will be a fairly large space for like DT's room or what have you, and we'll have kind of little rooms in the crew quarters space. I definitely like this space better. It's definitely smaller. So we may actually have to do something in the middle to just kind of adjust the actual playing area, but maybe not. I kind of like say you're off in this corner, you know, playing games or whatever, right? We got shuffleboard in here, so maybe you're playing shuffleboard on this wall length. This room size is not so small that like it feels claustrophobic, but it's not so big that I wouldn't be able to like see, you know, other people in the social space over there or whatever, like doing whatever they're. I think 1 meter block size is the way to go. I think that this is the right size. There you have it, guys. We did it. I'm freaking so excited. We determined the scale. We did some testing and determined that was not great, so we scaled it down and it's good. We've got okay. I'm most excited about having our podcast logo as the little splash screen for our thing. Like starting up that APK and seeing that pop up is so exciting. I feel so good about it. We've got everything kind of in place, so we're good to go there. We've got our room scale. You know what I'll do? I might just like take this APK and drop it in our Discord so that the people in there with headsets can try it out and see if they agree with my scale assessment. But I think that's good. I think that's a good place to call this video. If you like this devlog series, like make sure you hit the little button down, do the YouTube stuff. You get it. Tell your friends about Space Castle. Our podcast is dope and we're making cool stuff, obviously. I'll have all that linked in the doobly-doo. I'll also have our Discord linked in the doobly-doo. It's totally open. If you want to come and hang out and talk movies and nerd stuff and games and whatever, just come and hang out. It's a cool place. And then, so next episode, we need to refine the player movement. I want to get auto hand kind of set up. Maybe I'll even do like a separate non-devlog video, like a tutorial on how to set up auto hand and get it imported into a new project and get everything kind of worked through. But we need to do that. We need to set up auto hand and get like an actual player setup. We will start the real game file for Unity, not just tests and stuff. We'll start working on the actual file so we can start getting player movement set up in the next episode. Yeah. So thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate you staying till the end and being on this journey and just kind of watching me work through problems of making this game. Let me know in the comments if you like it, if you think that this is a good format, good length, all that good stuff. Let me know. Just let me know in the comments. I'll be down there.